Hey, what's up, travelers? Welcome into this little video of mine, of yours, of ours, of this global consciousness. Today, I am remaking the Aquarius general video, and what I mean by this is the video is going to be about Aquarius as a general energy. So whether you got the sun, the moon, the ascendant, Uranus, whatever you got in Aquarius, this video is for you. Or, if you want to learn about Aquarius, this is just a fucking video about Aquarius, yo. So Aquarius, well, if you want to understand really like any sign of the zodiac, you have to understand the whole, but mainly the sign that comes right before and the sign that comes right after. And the sign also that is opposite to it, and the signs that are of the same element, and the signs that are of complementary element, and the signs that are of, harsher chemistry. So you basically got to know the whole of the zodiac. But to start with Aquarius, let's just begin with what planets rule Aquarius. So first of all, you got Saturn, which is, I would say, the main ruler of Aquarius. Some people, they put the new rulers at it being Uranus for Aquarius, or like Neptune for Pisces, whereas Jupiter was initially ruling Pisces. But the way I kind of see it is that you got the main ruler for Aquarius. We're going to use this one as an example for this video, being Saturn. And Uranus is actually the co-ruler, because Uranus is so far out there that it needs a certain more visible, more physical planet, so to speak, a planet that you can see through your eye for it to act in our physical reality. So the main ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. So you can see that there's a certain structure to Aquarius, as much as they can be really, some people would say eccentric, or they can be polar shifting, as I would like to describe it. There is a certain sense of structure. So with the baggage of Aquarius comes a lot of knowledge. With it being the 11th sign, so there you got the master number. It's like the energy that got to Aquarius has gone through the 10 first signs. So from Aries, the creation of the self, up to Capricorn, so the implementation, because it's a cardinal sign, Capricorn, and cardinal signs are kind of like implement. And as much as these cardinal signs like Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn, they initiate the seasons, the energy that they have is also one of initiation and of implementing something. So Capricorn implements something in the physical realm, and this is the sign that comes before Aquarius. And Capricorn is also ruled by Saturn. So you could say that Capricorn is really the structure, in the sense of okay, so it's kind of Capricorn is this elder. It's oh, well, it must be done like that because this is the experience that I've gathered. But when you go up to Aquarius, it's kind of hard to describe Aquarius, because they are the polar shift, they are Saturn, just like Capricorn. So they know how things should be done, but intuitively they kind of have this higher, and I mean, you're gonna say higher, and they also have this God complex kind of that goes with their energy, because they understand the structure, but they know how to revolutionize it. So revolutionizing is really something that's Aquarian. It's also why Aquarius is often linked to technology, science, things out of the ordinary, because they understand the structure, but they're not attached to it like Capricorn, the sign just before, which is more earthy. They understand it in an abstract, intellectual way. So they know how to kind of break the mold, but maybe not in such a concrete way as Capricorn could implement a mold. So they could be seen kind of as maybe aloof at times, or they don't really care about certain things, or certain signs, especially the ones that are more in the beginning of the zodiac. Maybe they're, especially signs that are maybe Aries is at the beginning of the zodiac, and they're gonna understand Aquarius well, because Aries is gonna output a certain fire, a certain pure fire that's linked to their own inner self. And then Aquarius, since they're air, they're gonna be able to play with that fire and You know, there's going to be a good interaction between Aries and Aquarius. But if you're going, let's say, with Cancer or Virgo, or, you know, signs that are earlier in the zodiac, they might not really understand where Aquarius is coming from, and there can be like this certain tension. Aquarius can be kind of dry too. You know, they can be cold, they can be dry, but they can, you know, it's like, it's funny because you would think that Aquarius, you know, aqua, and even in French, like vers eau, you know, there's like this connotation with water with Aquarius, but they're the water bearers. It's like they don't really get wet all that much. They do have emotions, they do feel deeply, which I think is important to say, because a lot of people would say like, oh, Aquarius, well, they just don't feel anything, you know, they don't really care about anything, it's just eccentric fucking assholes that just do everything to be like the opposite of everybody. But it's not really that. It's that their knowledge has gotten them to understand something about the structure of life, and now their job is maybe not to get wet so much and get lost in the flow of things, but more so to be able to bring that flow towards a certain a new life, you know, giving life to new flows of thoughts, new currents of thinking, you know. As much as the opposite sign of Aquarius, Leo, gives life through their vitality, through the sun that represents them, Aquarius gives life through nourishing certain flows. You know, they're really the water bearers. So when you're trying to understand them, it's kind of like they have this innate ability to maybe they don't even understand how they understand, but just the way that the energy plays out, it shows a certain overstanding of the matter at hand. Now, Aquarius is one of the hardest signs to really describe because, as I said, it's kind of like a polar shift. So if I was to describe Aquarius as a polar shift, the polar shift to that polar shift might be that in the case that the example they would bring up, they wouldn't be the polar shift, but that would be the polar shift to being the polar shift. So how do you describe something that inherently has its nature in the fact that it changes what is already? It's really hard to describe something that is ever changing, you know. And just as Uranus, like the sign of Uranus is like two crescent, or like two parentheses, you could say, like a cross in the middle and like a circle at the bottom. It's like the energy switches from one side to the other, and there's just like woo woo woo, and it goes woo, woo, woo. So that's kind of like Aquarius. So where am I going with this? You know, Aquarius. So it also comes before Pisces. So whereas Pisces, they kind of can get lost in the flow of life, they kind of enact the flow so much that they can kind of get lost in it, and they see mirrors everywhere. Aquarius kind of has like the same understanding of things, but maybe their job isn't yet just to live that flow, or like to, you know, embody it so much that they become someone who's swimming in it, but they're more so someone that's gonna bring the water here and there, you know. Another thing that is interesting about Aquarius is that the period during which the sun goes through Aquarius is the period at which this the sun is farthest away from the earth. So the ecliptic of the sun ends up being farther away from the earth when it's in Aquarius. And in astrology, it is said that the sun is in its is it is fucking fall or detriment? I'm kind of having a blank there, but you know, the sun is kind of like it's not really in its place in Aquarius, and you could say also that it's obvious because Aquarius is detached from themselves, where they kind of see more their own identity, or the way they kind of see things is more so from you know, I don't want to go and say things with such like a common keywords, but you know, they kind of see you know, they're human, so they know the human nature in a sense, and for them, knowing this human nature and it being so obvious, it kind of makes them see the mold of this human nature, and then they're like, okay, well, how could I acknowledge this to my best benefit. So it kind of makes them be non-attached to the energy, the vitality of the sun, to how they make things orbit around them, you know. If that makes sense. I think Aquarius people will or would understand that. So, I mean, it's an air sign, so it's all about the relation, you know, between past, present, and future. It's kind of like air is kind of like the medium between these things. Like the earth is the present and the past, the water is the past, the fire is the future and the present, I would say. And I mean, water could be like the present too, I guess. Anyway, so you know, they kind of like act as mediums between different parties. Aquarian energy is linked to Uranus now, and Uranus was discovered through an instrument, through a telescope. Even though you could see Uranus on certain nights without an actual instrument, it was discovered with a telescope. And I think there is an interesting analogy you could make with Aquarius, because Aquarius is often linked to the internet, or you know, the 11th house is people that are far away, people you could meet online, that you could actually meet in real life. So just like Uranus, you're meeting them through an instrument, but you could actually see them for real at some point, you know. But Aquarius is more so like this energy that is far out. It's like through a certain structure, through an instrument also you could see. I'm kind of getting tangled up in my thoughts here, but you know, there is this interesting thing with Aquarius where like a lot of Aquarian energy is actually managing online structures. So you could see Aquarian energy being there like in groups online, and certain boards, like the administration of a board, or like you know, creating a community online where people can meet up, where you know, it's really creating like this stream, this flow where people can go to, like this river almost, or like being able to give someone a voice also that's far away, that's usually not heard. Could be Aquarian, although that's also like really Libra. But Aquarius is the last of the air signs. So if you were to say that the beginning air sign is Gemini, you could say like, okay, well, Gemini, they're trying to understand the basics of communication, of how the mind can be used. This is why Gemini can be like quirky. This is why Gemini can like relate between people. This is why Gemini, they can be, you know, relating maybe even in a way that they're like in a mercantile way, you know, they're like merchants. So they're kind of seeing the way that the Mercury and air could be used. Libra, they're making the balance between people. So they're seeing, now that they saw how the mind could be used, they know how to relate one person to the other. They could be like, okay, well, this person is that, this person is that, and then they're creating like this structure. And you know, Saturn is exalted in Libra, so there's this innate sense of structure also with air that can be done, you know, because air doesn't hold much weight, so it's easy to categorize it in a certain way. Whereas if you were to look at like Saturn in a water sign, water just fills whatever place is open for it to go. So it's harder maybe to have Saturn in a water signs. But anyway. And then, you know, so Libra looks at the relation on 101. And then when you get to Aquarius, which is the last sign of air, it's like Aquarius is a fixed sign. So they know how to fixate this ever-moving air current into a way that can reshape. You know, it's not like Libra where they initiate on the structure of things. It's not like Gemini where they kind of like adapt to stuff and they learn how to, you know, understand the airflows and how to use certain airflows for this, while maybe Gemini will be able to say something in front of many people and different messages will get to different people. Aquarius is more so they've learned how to be fixated on something so that they could bring a certain movement, a certain revolution, you know, a revolution of thought through the current that they're being focused and fixated on. So that's Aquarius. I have many more things to say, I'm sure. So Aquarius, you know, usually you would say that Leo, the opposite sign, is more like orangey, fiery, bright. Well, Aquarius, I would say, and I would think, is more so like it's also bright, but it's more electrifying, cold electrifying, you know, like a cold winter night where you see like the neon light reflected in the snow, and the snow is like all glimmering and shimmering, and you know, that's kind of like Aquarian color, maybe like a turquoise color, you know, a vivid electric color that's like that looks etheric almost. um I would I would see it more as like a pale blue turquoise electric thingy, but yeah, uh, you know, they're ruled by. I'm sure there's many associations with it, but the main body association with Aquarius is actually the not the shins, you know, but like the ankles, the bottom of the leg before the foot. Um, and I've actually like talked to an Aquarius before, and he said like, yeah, I like women with really thin ankles, and anyways, that's their part of the body, but it's also you could say that being the ankle, they kind of join different parts, and you know, Uranus could also be linked to the nervous system, so they're really the energy that travels and that joins certain parts of the whole, so that the movement could be done, you know. So again, with the past, present, future, from there to there, making sure everything is mobile, moving forward, like the ankles. What else about Aquarius? I would say that they are really intuitive. Intuitive and in intelligent sense, whereas Pisces is more intuitive because they feel a certain way, like their emotion is gonna get, you know, they're gonna get like this certain feeling where it's like, oh well, I feel that certain way, so if I know myself, I know what to do then. But Aquarius is more so like the almost like the mad scientist that knows which chemicals to mix with what, because they've seen blah blah, you know, there's really like this intellectual way of seeing how things go, and this enables them to really be intelligent, to really have a certain hold of this physical world, you know. They can kind of be alienated from this world in a certain way, because it's almost like, you know, this earthly plane is as much as it's ever changing, it's people, I'll say people, humans are kind of like resistant to change, and Aquarius naturally is comfortable with change, so at times it can kind of feel like they don't really fit in, kind of like Pisces, you know. I feel like the last signs, like starting with, you know, Libra, it's like, oh, Libra, they want to fit in, they want to make everything nice, but like starting from Scorpio, kind of start seeing the darker side of things, the darker nature of mankind. Sagittarius, they kind of accepted the darker nature, so now they're trying to make a light of it. Capricorn, they think they've understood the structure of things, they've understood how to make a light of it, so now they want to implement their own way of seeing things. Aquarius, they're like, no, this wasn't quite perfect, I'm gonna make the polar shift, the yang to the yin of Capricorn. And then you got Pisces like, oh fuck it, I'm just gonna go completely mad. So, you know, these last signs are, they're kind of like dealing with like the transformation of life, you know, and the rebirth kind of like of their vision of life. And you could also say that starting from Libra, you know, the sun is dying because the days start being shorter when Libra starts. So Libra, the balance, you know, at the solstice of fall, the sun actually starts kind of like being dimmer and dimmer, and then it starts being stronger in Capricorn. But, you know, these last 6 signs, but mainly like from Scorpio to Pisces, I personally feel like they have a bit more trouble fitting in with the actual world itself, because they deal with with realities that are more I dare not say advanced, because just in the purity of Aries, and Aries could be really, really advanced spiritually, just because they're so pure and like they don't even think twice about what they're doing, because it's just who they are. Let me just drink a bit of tea. You know, so these last signs like Aquarius, they can have more trouble fitting in. especially when people think that they're so emotionless. It's just that the way I got Venus in Aquarius, the way I feel it is, it's not emotionless. It's just, I feel like there's a bottom line to things, or like I feel like there is a certain, there is a use for emotions, and you know, I can't even quite say it. It's just like when you, it's not that I don't feel some, it's not Aquarius doesn't feel anything. It's just that it might take them more time to see how the feelings impact their state of being, if that makes sense. And it might also make them kind of like alienated from their own feelings in a sense, because I don't know why. Maybe you could tell me. But I do know that a lot of the Aquarius that I know of, or like when I see them post stuff online, it's like they're very self-deprecating. It almost worries me sometimes. It's like, are these people like depressed or something? Some of them. It's like they can be so aloof. They're making so much fun of the structure of their own waters. You know, they're the water baron with Uranus. It's like they're making fun of their own structure because they recognize how puny some of their emotional flows are, so they make fun of it. But at the same time, one of the ways to acknowledge and shift the energy, and this goes for anyone, is to really acknowledge it and live it. So perhaps sometimes with Aquarius distancing themselves from what they feel because they feel that like it's childish, you know, and Saturn is really the elder, because they feel it's childish, it's really not helping them, and they would really progress forward in the zodiacal way of things, at least if they were looking more, if they were taking into account first of all like the Leo side of themselves, like who they want to be, what it gives for them to be in the moment of their own self, you know, and really embody themselves as who they are. But also seeing like the sign after of Pisces, where it's like learning how to not necessarily go with the flow, but how to be the flow, you know, and just live it, and not, it's almost, I told one of my Aquarian friends this before, it's almost like Aquarius is too smart and it makes them I don't watch my language here, but it makes them afraid. They're afraid of jumping in the water. They're afraid of jumping in the river. So they're gonna go with their pot or whatever. They're gonna take some water out of the river. They're gonna give it to you because they know you need some of that good water, refreshing water. They know that you need to acknowledge your emotions, and they're gonna be able to almost be like a psychiatric. You know, some Aquarians can date like water signs because they just have this really good hold of like the water realm in such an intellectual way that they can kind of put words to emotions. But at the same time, as much as they can go and get the water and refresh you with it and hydrate you with it, they won't jump in the river because they don't know, because maybe their job is to be the one who gets the water and not the ones who go in the river. But you know, as much as they are an evolution from Capricorn, they can evolve themselves by looking at the energy of Pisces. So whatever you got in Aquarius, really, I would say that the planet represents, in the house in which it is in, will show you how that plays out in your life. But the planet that's in it will show you kind of like what you are gifted in this world, what you need to help the world advance in, you know, what you need to be fixated on, just as Aquarius is the fixed sign, what you need to kind of like, you know, if you got Mercury in Aquarius, you need to keep on with your innovative and like your shocking, because Uranus is really, you know, it's a shock, your shocking way of thinking. That's your gift. That's what you need to revolutionize. Maybe you understand some things that you can communicate that won't be accepted right away, but your job, even though you might not be able to convince people right away, is to keep being fixated on what you know is true and communicate it if you got Mercury, and then you're gonna help the global consciousness of humanity take it into account, you know, because fixed signs, they're fixed energies. They're not necessarily the ones that are gonna initiate on stuff like the cardinal signs. They're not the ones that are gonna be able to polish the structure or like, you know, mutate it and like enhance it and show the flip side of things like the mutable signs, but they're fixated. So the energy of Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius is to be fixated on what they know is true, so that the energy that they know is true can be held for a long time enough that it becomes important enough in the equation for it to play out, you know. So it's important for them to be truthful, but it's also important for them to accept when people are not ready to necessarily go with the structure that they're seeing. And I think one of the personal things that I could say is that people will think about what you said, even if they didn't agree on the, you know, when you talk to them, later they're gonna think back like, hey, this motherfucker, like he was saying like some wild shit and like we were judging him, but I think I'm starting to agree with him. That's motherfucking Aquarius. That's motherfucking any fixed signs. Like, oh, you were not seeing like the depth of something, but the Scorpio was like, they were like persistent and like they're like melancholy, or like, you know, they were, and then you kind of start seeing like, damn, like this Scorpio was motherfucking right. Same thing with Leo, like, this motherfucker was just so fucking playful. It's like they were so egotistical, you know. It's like they didn't, but damn, they're the one shining now. They were showing you how to be yourself and to embody the childish and playful and divine nature of humanity. Taurus, you thought that they were really slow and you thought that they couldn't really get to the same point as you, but in the end, they're the ones whose structure fucking lasted and they were just showing you something. So with Aquarius, it's really, maybe they're onto something that you're not yet. Aquarius is on something that you're not yet, and then with time, you're gonna see how that makes sense. So Aquarius has to accept that. They have to remain truthful, humble, and non-attachment is good to ideas, but if you truly want it to work, you have to be non-attached to who you are. So that's why the sun is kind of like the farthest away from the earth. It's that you have to embody that energy. You have to be not attached to the sun that represents yourself, right? The center of the solar system, the center of your existence. Not attached to that sun, so that when people don't agree with you, you don't get hurt yourself, but you can still do your Aquarian job. So that's what I had to say. Is it what I had to say? That's what I had to say about Aquarius, yo. So thanks for tuning in. Leave some feedback if you want, and if not, well, see you around the solar system or beyond. Hey, it's not stopping.